Thanks for joining me for another great conversation. As always, I appreciate you guys. What happened this week was the guest that I had scheduled had to reschedule, and I basically didn't have an episode ready. But with the gracious permission of my good friend, the Puffman, who's a creator here at the Spotlight Coalition Network with the Chillin With Th3Puffman podcast, he allowed me to play a segment from his show called Chillin With Your Pockets Full, which I featured in, and I talk Bitcoin. There's a ton of value here, guys. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Welcome back to Chillin With Th3Puffman. This is the most beloved segment of the show, Chillin With Your Pockets Full. As if you couldn't already tell by Puffy's No Way Out, it's all about the Benjamins. Intro to the segment. Sorry, Puff. You know I got nothing but love for you. Please don't flag me or sue me. Being the fact that it is essentially the first full show since coming back from Christmas break, I wanted to talk about something, and obviously Chilling With Your Pockets Full has to do about money, right, guys? But I wanted to touch base on a subject that, although has been around for a while, is now really, because of the happenings of 2020, a lot of people are now actually starting to realize the value in it. What is it, Puff? Get to it. It's Bitcoin, guys. So joining me, it is honestly an honor and a pleasure to have this guy on board, because he's my esteemed colleague over at and the founder, by the way, of the Spotlight Coalition, which we're going to get to plugging all that stuff in a little bit. But with me is Jose Burgos from the Jose Burgos podcast to talk Bitcoin. What up, Jose?
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to be with you. And this is going to be an awesome conversation that you and I have already had a few times already.
Yes. Now, that's the reason why we are here. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to keep it simple. That way the audience can get, I guess, I would suppose the minimum in terms of information that can maybe, start to entice them to want to get into things. So we'll get right into it. Jose, in its simplest form, without getting, too crazy for the folks out here, what is Bitcoin? Because I know that's really that's the number one question that I always get. What is it? So what is Bitcoin?
Yeah, I'll do my best to keep it simple. I am a techie guy, and I've known to ramble about stuff. So
that's all good.
First of all, I want to point out the irony of Puff Daddy potentially suing the Puff Man. There's a lot of irony in that situation right there. Like, yo, how could a Puff sue another Puff? That's crazy.
And all I'm saying is just Puff pass, man. That's all.
Hey, Puff, no, we trying to grind out here. He understands the game.
No doubt.
Yeah, but what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is many things, right? And it's very, very definition. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. But in a broader definition, we can go into it being a storage of wealth, it being a hard asset similar to gold. There's a lot of things that Bitcoin is. So I guess what I enjoy about Bitcoin, and what hopefully we can get into here, is it's a lot of different philosophies come into Bitcoin, and it makes it a really, really great network. And the days are gone where Bitcoin is considered as just a simple currency that's anonymous online. Now it's more like cryptocurrency is the storage of wealth that we meaning the middle class need in order to be able to pass on generational wealth and build wealth. But I'm sure we'll get into that. Now, the technology of Bitcoin, though, however, is basically it's an infrastructure that's run on the blockchain, and the blockchain is a technology that basically puts transactions on a ledger. So it's 100% trust, 100%. You can verify. You don't have to trust the other party to verify. And when you exchange value in the world, trust is the biggest issue. Okay. But yeah. I know that was a little bit long, but it's because
no. That's perfect. Yeah.
Bitcoin is definitely many things to many different people, and that's exciting.
Okay, so the fact that you brought up, and the reason why I said it's good, is because you mentioned, the fact that it's a system. So it's
a network.
It's a network, right? So to a lot of people, and essentially what you're saying is that Bitcoin is money. So it's money. So the next question that people are going to have is okay, well, now you've kind of given me what it is. How do I get Bitcoin? Because I know for a lot of people, the basics of getting money is essentially, service, pay for service, pay to play, if you will, right? So given that Bitcoin is now, I guess, I mean, I don't think it's possible to say that it's new on the field, but
no.
I don't think a lot of people have an understanding exactly as to how to get it, because it's not formalized yet as a type of currency for a lot of people. So how do people go about getting Bitcoin? Because the whole network thing may throw some people off.
Yeah, no, I want to change the narrative, and this is something that I learned. In 2017, when I first got into Bitcoin, I basically made the mistake that most people are making, which is what you brought up, is that we start to think of this thing as a currency, right? Okay. Because in its nature, it is a currency. But if you're going to think about it as anything, you should think about it as gold, right? So gold is money, but it's not actually physically money. It's just a rare, valuable material that exchanges value. So if you think about it as a currency, like I did in 2017, you're going to play it as an investor. You're going to try to get interest on Bitcoin. You're going to try to use Bitcoin to buy things, to spend. And that is definitely a philosophy. But I think it's easier for people to understand. Treat it like you would treat gold. You want to buy this and you want to possess it. Possess it. Sorry. And the reason that that's important is because there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin. So the reason gold.
No, wait. That's 21 million with an M or with a B billion?
Million.
As in million with an M, as in Mike.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
21 million. And the key to that is that if you go back to the very beginning of value exchange, right? Not even money for, say, seashells, rice, wheat, all these things that we've traded over time, basically. Basically, we believed as a network that this stuff was rare and hard to get, so we were willing to exchange work in order to get value in return for that work, and that's how it's worked since the beginning of time. Only, when empires in the past have tried the fiat system, which is what we're seeing now, where there's a currency, that's only when these type of economic areas kind of crumble, because if there's no scarcity and the value that's being exchanged. It's worthless, basically, or it becomes to the point where the tipping point makes it worthless. And if you think about Bitcoin as gold, and you understand that there will only ever be 21 million of these things, it's like you possess gold. And when the time comes, when everybody's looking for this gold, you are going to be able to name your price to give away this gold.
Okay, so now this is the thing though. The audience right now is saying, but how do I get it? So how do they go about? Yeah, how do they go about? And by all means, I mean, it may have been the original question, but at the same time, it's important, to understand the parameters as to what you're getting yourself into. Nobody likes to dive blind into water without knowing if there's a rock right underneath or shallow water.
That's exactly why it may seem like I'm over describing this thing. But if I were to just come on here and say, well, you can put money in and you can get money out, then that would lead a lot of people to make a lot of dumb mistakes. But if you understand what this is, and if you understand that you're supposed to have strong hands with this asset, this is not a stock. This is the Michael Jordan rookie card, right? This is the Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card. There's only so many of them in existence. And if I keep this thing gem mint, I'll be able to name my price down the road. Now, the reason that's important is because, and I am going to get into how you can get it. The reason that's important, the reason it's important is because with the fiat system, as the Fed continues to push and print more money, there's no scarcity in that. So inflation starts to happen. And when inflation starts to happen, we, typical middle-class people, our savings accounts that we think we're going to retire on are basically melting ice cubes. They just sit there in the account, and inflation eats it away. So, I actually posted this example earlier today. In 55 years or 40 years when I retire, I won't even be able to afford to take my family to the movie theater. A movie ticket at the current inflation point is going to be $580 a ticket.
I mean, that's even if they're still around. Let's be honest.
Correct. But that a candy bar would be $58 at one point is insane. It's insane. And this is what we need to hold this gold for, because I believe in the Bitcoin Standard, which is the book. The gentleman says, so I don't want to, I don't know if I'm 100% on this, but 100 times in the history of empires, the fiat system has been tried, and 100 times the fiat system has failed. Empires
sort of like socialism, but outside of that, besides the failure of all these other intricate things that we've used as currency, this currency, because one thing is to understand what it is capable of doing, but let's just say, as to play devil's advocate, now you've got the listener's ear and they want to get their hands on Bitcoin. So
let's get to that. Yeah.
What are the avenues available to them? Let's say that they want to take on the challenge of displaying that they have strong hands, if you will. But they don't necessarily know how to go about getting their hands on it. And what are the certain, I guess, caveats with having Bitcoin?
Okay,
after you've gotten it?
Yeah, so you can go to the easy answer is the Cash App has made it extremely incredible. Shout out to the Cash App. It's probably one of the better apps that I've ever gotten my hands on from a philosophy side, but also from a usability UI side. But anyways, you can go to Cash App. You can go to Coinbase. There's a lot of exchanges that you can go and basically buy Bitcoin. But in the past, it seemed like you were buying Bitcoin. So now one of your listeners and me personally would ask the honest question, which is, if Bitcoin is at $34,000, how the hell do I buy a Bitcoin? Well, what the average person needs to know is that, they've broken down little pieces of the Bitcoin. So I like to explain it as a gold bar, right? And then I may not be able to afford, the gold bar is the whole Bitcoin. I may not be able to afford that whole gold bar, but I can tell the person who's selling it, hey, can I get pieces of that gold bar? Right? So that in the Bitcoin world is called Satoshis. And what Satoshis are, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, what Satoshis are basically a smaller increment of Bitcoin. So now you and I are able to buy pieces of the gold bar for as little as $1. So what I tell the average person is, stop worrying about where the price of the whole gold bar is. Just get as many small pieces of that nugget as you can get your hands on. And
essentially, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's fine. It's basically an accumulation game, right? So now you could gamify this and you can say, well, how many sats? That's what it's called, stacking sats. By the way, to the listeners, stacking sats is cool. Buying Bitcoin is dope, but stacking sats is awesome. There's clever ways for you to stack sats. And then remember, you don't want to care about the price of the whole bar. You want to be able to get to 100 million sats.
And sats essentially, from what you've explained to me while we've had these conversations, is essentially that it's literally, sats is the little nugget of gold that you go out and buy, and you're trying to essentially piece, as much of it together to where you can maybe say, hey, I own a whole thing. Now, obviously, no one's really going to own the whole thing, because the whole thing is only 21 million. Which is what comprises the whole thing. So that's 100%. So you're really buying less than 1% every time, and you're just trying to amass as much of it as possible. So I guess, so Cash App would be one of those conduits. So essentially, are these companies that you mentioned, Cash App, Coinbase, I think you mentioned a third one in there.
Yeah, that's a bunch of them. There's Kraken. There's a bunch of different platforms that you can go on. There's Coinbase Pro. I'm probably forgetting a bunch of them, but the exchanges are very popular. It's not a rare thing.
So, all right. Now,
one caveat. I'm sorry. Before we go on, now that we're talking about application, PayPal and Robinhood also allow you to buy Bitcoin, but please do not buy your Bitcoin there. And it's not because I hate these companies. It's because they do this weird thing where you don't actually possess the asset Bitcoin. You don't own the little gold pieces. You basically get an IOU from them that says, hey, whenever you're ready to cash out, we'll give you the money. But you never own this. And in the Bitcoin universe, there's this saying, if you don't own the keys, you don't own the cheese. So it's important for the listeners to not Robinhood it and not PayPal it.
And with that being said, just because we have in fact mentioned Cash App, and we've mentioned some other companies like Coinbase and the likes.
Yeah.
None of those are. First of all, we're not sponsored by them, and they're not endorsements of those apps either. So, when you go out and you try to put your money in, if you're gonna do it, I just want you to understand that you're doing it at your own risk. Everybody is at their own risk.
We're not financial advisors.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, that's important to say. It really is. We're not financial advisors. Rule number one of investing: don't spend any money you're not willing to lose.
That you're not willing. I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
With that being said, so we know what Bitcoin is. Yeah. We know, in all reality, and I appreciate that you've gone into detail. We know some of the intricacies of it, and what we could expect out of it. Because let's be honest, I mean, everything is a gamble. So we know what we can or could expect out of it if it pans out, like anything else in life.
Yeah.
Now it pans out, or is beginning to pan out, and the audience has now understand what Bitcoin is. Yeah. The audience understands where to get it from. Because listen, guys, the one thing that you guys need to do is whatever Jose and I say here, go listen. You have a smartphone. You have a computer.
Down the rabbit hole. You
dig into it. Yeah. Just dig into it, right? So now you know what Bitcoin is. You know where to get it, and I'm pretty sure you're going to find out there's way far more names out there in terms of exchanges is concerned. Now, the biggest thing is you have the money, and I'm glad you mentioned, because even though you go into these detailed punches, they lead right into it. They're perfect segues. Yeah. So you have the money, right? Yeah. And as you said, the saying in the Bitcoin realm right now is, if you don't own the keys, you don't own the cheese.
Correct.
So is there a way, because I know you said, look, don't buy from PayPal, don't buy from these other, entities, because they don't really let you own it. Right. Are there wallets, sort of like how Apple has the Apple Wallet or whatever it is that they call it. Yeah, Google has a wallet as well. All these different entities have a wallet. Let's say I want to have full and utter sole possession of my Satoshis, which, guys, there is a difference. Satoshi is part of a Bitcoin, but is not a full Bitcoin. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Pieces of the gold bar.
Right. How do I, hold within my own grasp the value of these Satoshis that I'm going out and buying? Is there a way of doing that? Is there a wallet to have my little tiny bits of Bitcoin in a wallet that I can trust?
Yeah. This is Bitcoin custodialship, ownership of your Bitcoin is a must. But that's a rabbit hole within a rabbit hole inside of Bitcoin, right? So there's a lot of different ways for you to be able to hold it. But what makes Bitcoin, so what makes Bitcoin so valuable, besides the stuff that I've just named, that it's gold, that it's rare, is the fact that nobody can ever take it from you, right? So it's decentralized system of a network of global nodes. So the government can't come in and say, hey, give me your gold, give me your Bitcoin. They can't do any of that, because it doesn't actually, it's a global network, right? So that's why it's valuable. So you can buy it on Cash App, you can buy it in all these places we talked about. But I'm glad you brought this up, because if the point of Bitcoin, or one of the points of Bitcoin, is to not be able to let anybody take it from you. And if you leave it on, if you leave it on Cash App, if you leave it on Coinbase, if you leave it on anywhere, you don't own the keys, they do. So let's just say tomorrow morning, the Fed tells Cash App, and this is all in theory, obviously, tells Cash App, you guys can't do this anymore. Well, whatever Bitcoin you have there is now under the control of Square, and they can move the field goal post and do whatever it is that they want.
So with that, you see, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. Because and honestly, I know there's been a lot of talk, especially since late last year, of an impending, multiple impending bubbles that may be bursting, and we all know what happens when these bubbles burst. Yeah. Right. So you don't want to have these entities holding your shit. Right. So how do I gain? Are there physical wallets that I can have, sort of like, the old school wallet, but obviously more in a tech sense of the word, or are there virtual wallets? How do I get to these spots on the internet, obviously, because that's where it's at, where I would be able to hold my money on my own? How do I do that?
Well, the example that I just gave there, leaving it on Coinbase and leaving it on Cash App, those are basically hot wallets, right? Mm-hmm. So you gotta think about those, and it's called leaving it on the exchange. You gotta think about those as, like your real wallet. You have the amount of money in there that if somebody comes and stick you up in an alley or something like that, you're willing to lose that. Oh, all right, I lost $200.
Okay.
Great. But then there's this.
Not that we're advocating for you to allow somebody to stick you up, but listen, at the end of the day, your life is more.
Give up that $200. Only in the movies do you fight back for the $200. Leave that alone.
Right.
Take the $200.
Unless you strap like a sandal.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But let's get to it, man.
Yeah. So then there's this such thing now as a cold wallet, right? Or cold storage is what they call it. And this is the equivalent, to use the gold analogy again, the equivalent of digging the gold in the backyard, right? Nobody knows where it is.
Wait. So is this a physical wallet that I go out and buy?
There's hardware wallets that do cold storage, which means that, this device gives you the ability to generate your 24-word seed phrase, which is how you lock the vault, right?
Okay.
And they generate codes, addresses that you can send and receive Bitcoin to. But the actual Bitcoin is not on the hardware device. It's on the network. Right? Okay. So you do buy a physical hardware device to get a cold storage. But the theory of the cold storage, like I said, is that it's dug in the backyard. And unless anybody gets your key to your vault, which is your 24 words that are specific to you, they can't get access to your Bitcoin. Nobody can.
Okay, so you have this physical wallet.
Yes.
Which is I'm supposing it's like a little device.
Like a USB thumb drive sometimes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basic.
Essentially, so how do you store your money, if we're gonna call Satoshi's money, right?
Yeah.
Let's just say it's money.
Yeah.
How do we store that in those wallets? How do we transfer from, let's say, considering that Cash App is the most readily available, app out there. And once again, this is not an endorsement of Cash App, guys. But let's just say
it's not.
Stop loving Cash App, damn it. Anyways,
it's a great app, man.
It is, those bastards.
Yeah, shout out to Spotlight Coalition. We could run ads for you guys. Reach out to Spotlight Coalition. We could do that. Cash App.
There you go.
There you go.
Now, how do I take, let's say, you know what? I've had I've been accumulating Satoshis, these little golden nuggets of Bitcoin in this Cash App account. And now I think I have enough of it where I want to stash that, because obviously I'm seeing the value go up. Yeah. I want to stash that where, like you said, I don't want to get caught red-handed and maybe get robbed for it, in the sense of the term.
Right.
How do I transfer that to that wallet?
Yeah, so when you get these hardware devices, and there's ways to do it with software, not just hardware, but what ends up happening is this. You generate a new wallet, right? And this wallet, and every single wallet, has a specific 24-word seed phrase that they give you. Okay. Some of them are 12, 18, but the best ones are 24. And what these are is just random words that are generated in a numerical order, 1 to 24. So beach, trophy, sandcastles. It's just words that are generated. Now, because of these 24 words, that is basically your vault specifically. Those words can never be replicated, and they'll never be given to anybody else. The system is just coded to do this. So when you get these 24 words, you get a public key that are made in synonymy with those 24 words.
Okay.
And now that public key, you can now tell Cash App, hey, you look at this address that I got from this public key, send it here, and this address will make sure that it goes behind my 24 words. And behind my 24 words is where the vault is.
Okay, so you know what? And actually, this was going to be the last question, but
security's a rabbit hole.
We're kind of running out of time here, so I'll tell you what. I'll skip the fourth. Maybe, I'll tell you what. Listen, the last one was going to be, can I lose my Bitcoin money? And now that you brought that up, because while I was having this conversation about Bitcoin, the multiple conversations that Jose and I have had, he did in fact bring up that you could lose your money. Meaning, and just correct me if I'm wrong here, okay? If I give Bitcoin the incorrect, phrase, 24 key phrase, by accident, what happens to my Bitcoin?
You get locked out of your Bitcoin. And the best example I could give to people is this. The biggest threat to your Bitcoin is you.
Okay.
So like
user error, essentially.
User error, and I don't know if anybody reads about airplanes and stuff like that. But the reason that they say that airplanes are safer than driving in a car is because airplanes have 3 to 4 fail safes for every single major component of the plane. So 99, probably 0.8% of the time that there's an accident on a plane is because of the pilot, not because of the plane. So if you get locked out of your Bitcoin or you get hacked for your Bitcoin, like, you give somebody your 24 words, which is your seed phrase, which is your key. That's how you get hacked. It's user error. Bitcoin didn't screw you over. You screwed yourself over.
Gotcha. All right. So essentially it's sort of like walking around, giving the wrong people your username and password to your current bank account.
I don't know what number rule it is, but there is in the top 10 rules of Bitcoin. Never for any reason give out your 24-word seed phrase. Never. Wow. Nobody will ever have to ask you for it, and there's no reason for them to ask you for it because that's why you have a public key, and that's why your public key makes random addresses, so they don't need to ask you for those 24 words to send you money. Never give it up. Right. Never give it up.
Well, I'll tell you what.
And there's no locksmith. By the way, I'm sorry. There's no locksmith. So if you want to think about the example of keys, there's like if you lose your key, you can't just call a locksmith to retrieve your key for you. You lost the key. There's no more. If you want to use that analogy.
I'll tell you what. Yeah. I said I had 5 questions, and I know I skipped over the fourth, but the fourth was really more or less, can you cash it out, through a centralized form to get centralized money, if you will, meaning cash? And the answer is yes, guys. So that's the reason why I kind of just went over that question, because that final question of can I lose it is a very important question. And you know what? I will promise you, I will try my best to bring Jose back on the show so we can actually get deeper into, the things that could possibly go wrong and as to why they are, in fact, user error. Yeah. But for now, Jose, you hear that sound? That means that the floor is absolutely yours, and you are more than welcome to plug in anything you'd like, as long as there's somebody or an entity that is not paying you or paying you, because at the end of the day, they're paying you. Come on, man. I got bills too, son, but go ahead, man.
Yeah. Shout out to Cash App. No. Listen, thank you so much. Spotlight Coalition, which, it's where the creators are. So head over to Spotlight Coalition and please support all of our creators. That'll be the first and foremost. We talk about investing, and this is what Bitcoin is. And a lot of people may be saying, "Hey, man, well, I live check to check. I don't have the money to do that." Well, in order to generate more wealth, you have to generate more streams of income. So you have to start a side hustle. Right. So, over there in Spotlight Coalition, we have a segment that's helped a ton of people basically start their side hustles, whether it's podcasting, whether it's digital marketing. So head over there. You'll see the $300 startup. And that's basically, everything you need to basically get your side hustle going and to get it legit. And even a little bit of Facebook so you can advertise the side hustle. So then if you make a little bit more money, this conversation will make a lot more sense to you because you're willing to now invest in your future. But if you're living check to check, you won't be able to do that. So, the toolkit is there. If you want to learn more about Bitcoin, I do this segment called Talking in Bits. You could look it up on Anchor. It's literally Talking in Bits. It's about Bitcoin and crypto. Can't wait to come back. I can't wait to come back and talk to you more about this Bitcoin, guys.
You gonna come back?
Send the Puffman your questions, guys, because it'll be a much more organized segment if you guys got a lot of dire questions, and Adam could basically be that conduit that'll get that information here so you guys can hear the answers. I don't claim to know it all. Go down and take the orange pill. It's not the red pill. Go take the orange pill. and go do some research. Bitcoin is definitely something we've never seen before, and small conversations like this don't even do it justice. But us middle class people need to take advantage. We need to understand that we need to beat inflation, and Bitcoin is the train to beat inflation. And thanks for having me.
And you can get, yeah, absolutely, man, or anytime. And as Jose said, you guys can head on over to the spotlightcoalition.com. And trust me, when you land on that website, you are more than likely going to spend more time on it than you actually think you're going to, because the amount of information that's on there is essential, is necessary, and in a day like the days that we're living in, I should say, that information is never going to lose its value. So, Jose, thank you for coming on Chilling with Your Pockets Full. I'm glad I was able to book you for this, because it's a subject that everybody's talking about. And I know I've had a lot of people approach me about it. And I was like, you know what? I'll tell you what. Before you hear it from me, because I'm not very well versed, I think you guys should hear from this guy. So, guys, make sure you check out the Jose Burgos podcast. Make sure you go on to thespotlightcoalition.com and check him out on there. I'm on there. I'm part of the project as well as part of the network, and you'll find other podcasts on there as well. If you know what, if one day you choose that Chilling with the Puffman is not your cup of tea, guys, I'll see you guys on the other side of the break. Jose, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, brother. Talk to you soon.
No doubt.
Always a great time talking to the Puffman. He's one of my favorite people to speak to. Please go ahead and support the Puffman and head on over to spotlightcoalition.com, because he's one of the many great creators that we have and that we have coming. So go check them out and show them some love. Chilling with the Puffman is the podcast. Spotlight Coalition is the network. As always, I appreciate you guys. Please rate, share, and subscribe this episode so I can continue to have the conversations I love to have, and you can continue to get the conversations that you love to listen to. As always, guys, take care. Later. Hey guys, Jose here, and I wanted to share something really cool and really powerful that can help most of my listeners, because if you guys are listening to this podcast, you most likely appreciate the business owners that come on here that are in control of their own destiny, and you appreciate that being able to get your vision out. So some of you may not know how to do that or are stuck in that process. And what I did is I took my experiences and everything, and I learned in all my early business ventures, and I put it all into a course to try to speed things up, right? So what I learned over time, guys, is that technology has leveled the playing field, and it has literally fast-forwarded time. So when I was growing up, you needed to have these big influxes of income to be able to start a business. You needed to have a brick and mortar in a place, and now we can literally get our website, get our hosting, get our logo, get a Facebook presence, run some Facebook ads, and do all this in as fast as 48 hours and as little as $300. If that interests you, then please head over to spotlightcoalition.com/all/courses. But the easiest way to get there is spotlightcoalition.com, and you'll always see it on the top menu as the $300 startup. Head there, guys, and you can go check out this excellent course that, like I said, I walk you through, and I share my screen so you can see firsthand how to do all these things, how to, get a sole proprietorship, or how to set up a PayPal account, or, run Facebook ads, and how to do audiences and do a bunch of really cool stuff that took me years to learn. And you'll be able to get all that information in this one brief, easy course. I appreciate you guys. This is how you can help support the show. Go check it out. On to the show.